The archaeologist, the griot, and the musician, and the difficult past of Atlantic slavery. Slavery shaped our modernity and created a set of relations and material entanglement that redefined our humanities through race and identity, making in a context of a globalized political economy. The economic and social privileges, inequalities, and injustices it created on the basis of racial, ethnic differences constitute one of our living together today. That legacy is legitimated and contested via various forms of representation that leave deep wounds onto modern society. I approach this difficult past through an exegesis of archaeological and heritage practices in a region known as the Cabo Verde Peninsula in West Central Senegambia that encompass the World Heritage Site of Gore Island and its backcountry. In this presentation, I scrutinize the emphasis on Gore Island and the extroverted knowledge production and meaning making that leave out adjacent interland and other maritime communities such as the Lebu and Safen speakers who were key actors of processes related to I give you on this slide, you can see the region of Cabo Verde Peninsula on west. You have the island of Gore that epitomizes today the Atlantic slave trade on the coast of Senegambia. The event in 2020 challenged the legacies of Atlantic slavery and urge us to rethink our field practices and research dissemination and heritage studies. And these events urge to re-examine the ways the knowledge we produce impact society and how it can be, depending on the way it is produced and disseminated, how it can be transformational, and if it is, of course, practiced ethically and in a way meaningful. The objective of the research we want to discuss today were to explore decolonial practices that blend more coherently with local history making and knowledge dissemination. And to do so, we thought to incorporate with the griot and a rap musician to allow us to better communicate with local communities in a way that resonated more coherently with local worldview. In the Senegambian histories in a way that diffuse tensions and build bridges within diverse agencies. They are able, the griot, they are able to hypnotize and control their agencies, and therefore the griot are powerful artisans in building our living together as a society. In working with a griot and a musician, we thought to better serve what Michael Blackie called an ethical client community. And in this particular case, that ethical client community is constituted of the Lebu and Safen people who resisted to the development of Atlantic slavery. Our goal in this study is to cultivate alternative archaeological practices that articulate academic approaches making to make them more digestible for local consumption. We also seek to develop themes that are more in line with local communities' demand for history. New kinds of knowledge and meaning making that are more relevant to local sensibilities, using local languages to experiment new ways of producing and consuming history in a way that can benefit local communities. The archives of Atlantic slavery poses deep wounds among local communities. Also poses issues of affect that are pretty much that do poses sometimes that create tension within the societies. And here you have a set of archives, for instance, discussing the Maison des Esclaves or images, and to show that these are the kind of narrative that impacts on different kinds of visitors coming into Gorée Island and the Maison des Esclaves, and the nature of that experience and how we impact the visitors properly. Slavery is also present in the Senegalese debates, and I would even say it's common. And slavery is a status that is maintained, and it is ascribed at birth and maintained through the life of the individual. And there are also a number of legacies that are still visible in current day social relation, economic dependence and relations of clientages. And there are several legacies that can be seen on the ground that poses issues in relation to prejudice, racial, ethnic, and cultural stereotype. A lot of verbal violence, for instance, that poses issues of social justice in the present. The site of Gorée Island and the debate on slavery in Senegal also have ignited more global debate on slavery, because the island of Gorée and its slave warehouse do attract high-profile visitors on Gorée Island, which give a greater visibility to this place at the world stage. To go back to the area of the Cabo Verde Peninsula, we're discussing two important communities, small-scale communities by the 18th century, entered this region in relation to the conflict and the tension emanating from the spread of Atlantic slavery. The non-people and the labor people who settle in this region, particularly according to written archives, particularly, and even oral archives, particularly in the 18th century. The labor in their opposition against the polity of Kajor that was involved in slave hunting, and the long-term opposition to to centralized polities and political domination, particularly against the wall of warlord and slave hunters. In a survey 2 or 3 years ago, we found this magnificent site surrounded by hills to one of these communities, Safen communities that settled in heavily vegetated areas surrounded by hills, and in a way, those kinds of features protected them against the warlords as well as against the Europeans. So this site surveys and excavated, and this is where we decided on this side to work with a griot and a musician to engage with communities using a griot, working with a griot and a musician so that we could disseminate the message from archaeology, the evidence from archaeology so that we could disseminate it in a way that it could be more digestible to local communities, more than we can do with books and journals. Use medium of communication by archaeologists that are unfortunately poorly accessible to these communities. So we work with a griot and a musician on this side to make sure that our message, our interaction and our exchange, our engagement with these communities could be more meaningful, and the message could be more digest than the books and journal that we usually produce. Looking at the archives of the encounter of the Europeans and local communities, but also the contradiction within local communities that cause tensions among between different groups, particularly money in the early 20th century. There are other important sites, heritage sites in the area that are related to the site. Defense is extremely important for, and this rock was extremely important to local communities, and of course continued even in the present to be very significant in the resistance against any forms of power and domination. Communities to protect themselves by raising bees that were used as an army to resist slave hunters. And after collecting all this information, we engaged the community to discuss the significance of the archaeology as well as some of these features, and in a way, song that was produced by the rapper and the best following that should belong together.
Bëgg sa tey leer fàttalikul démb bañ sa xeet xeeb sa bopp soppalikul dëmm xam du réer fi muy mujje mooy dëgg ëllëg du añ du reer waaye daa mët a sédd tey la neex ñu xëccoo suufaay bu ñu kenn tànkal lébu yemoo kaaru bu fi am mètre carré santal lépp ngi doore si jalaaw di laas bu ndaw bu ne si dégg baax montagne yi wër ko ki ko sàcc mooy ci la migré ma pes ci jël ko xebar bi def ravage dëkk bi tas nit ñi daw ñi ëpp si ñoom dem géej ñi di des wutali penk mbayar ku bi sam géej sit baa ngi noonu protégé par les massifs de Diass soo bëggee am lu gën a leer demal région de Thiès di fa gis ay lomb ba mel yu mel ni dañ tojitu ndaay wër ko teeli si ëpp dëkku waayu ay bi jël ko Thiès du ma lu kaañ sinon xol yi fees sinon xol yi fees sinon xol yi fees sinon xol yi fees yàgg bawul dara sant dëkkul fenn li waral kalante bi firndeel maam yi nekkoon benn réer di lébu ñoo bokk benn maam ci law seen ku nekk ak cosaanam ku nekk ak sa fem waaye aada yi ngay gis si lébu bi fekk ko sa feen ceddo piir saafi bàyyee ko ba Fuuta islam ñëw mu bañ a tuub ñu andil ko fa guuta am ñu naan sax dëkku fa dégg naa sax ñu naan yàgg na Fuuta Tooro di séeréer migré di ñëw àndoon naag dogo ay nit yu doon tabax ndaa ak ay forgeron classe ya ba yaa di tekki mbaa di ndaa history wasaru jaarandi history wasaru jaarandi.
What is incredible in this video is that it does tell the history of the archaeology as it articulates to the heritage in local language in a way that usually we archaeologists are unable to do. And for that very reason, to other social actors, to other actors in making history that can contribute to elevate the archaeological message and make it more digestible to these communities is incredibly important for us. Archaeology over the past have been attentive to social movement, many of which contributing, of course, to revive history, to attend to the demands and aspirations of historically dehumanized and disenfranchised people. The alternative possibilities sketched out here are part of our strategy to cultivate a Senegalese teranga aesthetic in the practice of archaeology at home to meet local demands and worldview more than books and published scientific journal article can do. Our efforts for transformative practices seek to instigate change and redirect our goal, urgencies, and approach to open new possibilities of growth for archaeology. Thank you for your kind attention.